Hey there, have you read the Harry Potter novels? Did you know that J.K. Rowling's work was rejected 12 times before she got her big break with the Harry Potter novels? In this video, we are going to cover the unbelievable turn of misfortune. So stick around to listen to the story of how Joanne Kathleen Rowling went from being a suicidal single mom who was rejected 12 times to becoming the world's most successful writer, selling over 450 million copies. First up, her dreadful teenage years. This may seem unrelated, but Rowling's story as a writer pretty much started when she was a child. She used to tell made-up stories to her little sister Diane. They weren't the same quality as the ones she's famous for, but those moments as an impromptu story writer lit a spark inside her, and that spark is the reason we are all treated to Harry Potter's magnificent world of magical arts. Her days weren't quite as bad as Harry's when he lived with the Dursleys, but she still says she wasn't particularly happy in that dreadful time of her life. She had to go through the news of her mother being diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when she was just 15 years old. Neither of her parents had gone to college, so they couldn't guide her academically, but that didn't stop her from having the thirst for knowledge. During her time at the University of Exeter studying French, she would study well outside her syllabus, and at one point she had so many overdue books at the university library, she was fined £50. Next up, post-graduation struggles. J.K. Rowling began working as a translator for Amnesty International. She often found herself reading hastily scribbled letters, written by people in totalitarian regimes calling for help. Even though she felt her work was important and that she was helping people, she felt that she didn't fit in that sort of work. In retrospect, she conceded that she wasn't the best of secretaries either, since she is, quote, one of the most disorganized people in the world, unquote. The only aspect of having an office job was enjoyed by typing up stories on the company typewriter when no one was looking or choosing excellent names for characters. Now the challenges of adult life. Rowling didn't know it yet, but the peak years of her writing career had begun. She was sitting on a delayed train from Manchester to London when she came up with the idea of Harry Potter. It took her 5 years to carefully outline the plots for all 7 of the books we read. She wrote on whatever she could get her hands on, and eventually she found that all her valuable work was scattered on small scraps of paper. But the outline was in her mind, and the gears were in motion. Rowling lost her mother on New Year's Day in 1991. She received a call from her dad and remembers, "Dad called me at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I just knew what had happened before he spoke." She now thinks about her every single day, and her mother is undoubtedly always by her side. She feels that they would have impossibly much to talk about could they have just one more day together. She moved to Porto, Portugal to work as an English teacher, married a Portuguese television journalist named 𝐦𝐤𝐬𝐬, and had a daughter. She named her daughter Jessica after Jessica Mitford, a British investigative journalist and activist. Jessica was born in July 1993 and was only 5 months old when her parents separated. It was during her time in Porto when she started working on a book about a boy who found out he was a wizard and was sent off to wizard school. Half of her suitcase was filled with scraps of paper filled with stories about Harry Potter. We can only wonder how much of that raw material was added to the books and how much of it we missed out on. Then came Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Rowling moved back to Britain at the end of 1993 and lived in a small flat. She lived off government welfare and spent most of her days sitting at different cafes writing her first of the Harry Potter novels on a typewriter, with Jessica crumpled up beside her in a pram. She is still grateful for the benefits she got in the shape of government welfare and often opposes politicians who try to cut down on funding for welfare programs. The time she spent as a single mother on benefits makes her prouder than any part of her life. She faced hardships and despite all that, worked on the gem that is Harry Potter. Perhaps she was the only one to do it because of those hardships, as the only escape she would be able to find would be the world of Harry, Hermione, and Ron. Next up, she was depressed for a lot of her adult life. Rowling is perhaps one of the biggest proofs that staying resilient and not giving up is worth it. It's heartbreaking to think that the world's most famous writer almost wasted all that potential of being loved around the world for her story purely due to the lack of a sense of purpose. And we must all commend her for hanging in there when the days were the hardest to bear. She attended therapy sessions, and she later revealed that she has never experienced anything as unpleasant as depression. She later revealed that she used her experience of depression to characterize the Dementors in her books. Up next, the Rejections. Rowling sent her book to many publishers, hoping someone would let her share her work with the world, but everyone rejected it for one reason or another. It is normal in the writing world for authors to find themselves getting rejection letters from every direction, but Rowling thinks rejections are merely redirections, and special pieces of talent have a way of finding a way to their audience. Eventually, her book was accepted by Christopher Little, who was a struggling literary agent at the time, and took a chance on Rowling. Bloomsbury bought the rights to publish an initial print of 500 copies of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in Britain. She then had to pick a pen name. Her publishers believed that boys may not want to read books written by a woman, so for marketing purposes, she had to make her name sound more like a man. She picked J.K. Rowling, J for her name, Joanne, and since she didn't have a middle name, she chose her paternal grandmother's name, Kathleen. And then the book was a hit. The name J.K. Rowling blew up so fast that Joanne had to attend therapy sessions so she could figure out how to deal with so much attention. The book sold 300,000 copies in the UK, and both adults and children loved it. She won Nestle Smarties Book Prize and sold the book publishing rights to Scholastic in the United States of America. She was paid an unbelievable $100,000 by Scholastic, and she finally bought an apartment for herself and her daughter. She released the second book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and her acclaim only grew. Warner Brothers offered a 7-figure deal to adapt the books into movies. Millions of sales and magically impacting billions of lives later, the final movie, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, came out and ended the history's highest viewed movie franchise. Next, the busiest time of her life. Rowling's fourth book, The Goblet of Fire, was a special one, as the book was 2 times longer than her third book, The Prisoner of Azkaban. She had to put in twice the amount of effort. Due to the increased popularity both in the United States and the UK, publishers decided to release the book to the world on the same day. Loads of resources were put into making sure the book would be released on the same day, so getting an extension on the deadline was impossible. During this time, she was also working on the movie of the first book. Understandably, the pressure and the workload overwhelmed her. She made the deadline, but for the next book, she decided to slow down a bit. She told Bloomsbury, her publishing company, that she couldn't write the next book in only 1 year. It was during her time off that she had the level of fame and wealth sink in. She didn't stop writing, though. During her time off, she published 2 minor books, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and Quidditch Through the Ages, the former of which would later go on to become a successful movie series. Finally, happy ever after. The tougher times of her life were now definitely behind her, and it seemed the only way to go was up. After the first Harry Potter movie was released, she married Neil Murray. She is statistically the first ever billionaire made through writing. But she didn't want anyone to go through what she had been through. Because of this, she donated large amounts of her wealth to various charities, losing her billionaire status in the process. She now makes an effort to set aside at least 1 day of the week to do charity. She completed her 7-book series of Harry Potter, and all 7 books in total sold more than 450 million copies. She closed that chapter in her life in 2011 with the last movie being released, and it broke the record of having the most successful first week of the premiere. She moved on to other novels and reportedly even wrote under a male pen name, Robert Galbraith, to see if it was her name that sold or her writing. Once it was leaked that Robert was Joanne, the sales of Cuckoo's Calling rose by 150,000%. Fame does sell. So that was it, guys. Rowling's life has many more mentionable events, but that's all we have time for today. Please comment your favorite time of her life, and if you think there is something else we should have added in this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.